New type of story problem. It says a soccer ball is kicked off the ground with an initial upward velocity of 45 feet per second. For how many seconds will the ball land on the ground? That means when's it going to be 0 feet? Okay. Need to take a little different approach here because we're not finding the maximum height of the ball. We're finding the number of seconds that it landed on the ground. Okay. Need that seconds filled in. So let's go back to our problem solving with 2 units, feet and seconds. So there's 2 units. So we're going to make a units box just like we do with the other problems. Okay. We're going to make a graphical path and then a equation, just like that. Okay, so first off, the units are feet and seconds. Okay, I'd want to define that seconds, since that's my time unit, I define that as x, and then my feet's y. So per, and then feet per second. Okay, so the feet per second is given to us, it's 45. That's rate of change. Now I have a question. Would the ball go up in a line and just keep going up in a line for eternity? You think that's really going to be possible with gravity playing it? Probably not. So it's going to be a parabola. And you need to find where it's 0 feet. So it's a parabola. So don't worry about marking any points or anything like that, because we're not finding the maximum anymore. We're finding some other point. We're actually going to find when it's on the ground right here. Okay. All right, so I write the gravity equation. Remember, the leading gravity coefficient is negative 16 x to the second power plus, and then if you're wondering what you're at after that, you got to take this 45, so 45x, and then it started from the ground, so I don't need to add anything after that. Okay, so I put equals y. Okay, is the way to go about that. Okay, and that's the equation. It's pretty easy to write. Now the replacement value is 0 feet. So 0 feet. And what variable do you think 0 feet is going to go in for? Given the fact that we know what feet is y, I'm guessing it goes in for y. Okay, so I have negative 16x to the second power plus 45x equals 0. Okay, so I need to solve this equation. So first off, my first question is how many answers do you think it has? Because we do have x to the second, so I think it has 2 answers. And we have x to the second, and we have x, so we're going to set up our factoring boxes because these x's aren't like terms. There's 2 of them, but they're in different types. There's x second and x. So we need to make our GCF box because the 0 is already there. Okay, we put that in. And GCF. So my first question, do you have a negative in front? Yeah. And you're always going to have a negative in front because that 16 is that we put there is always negative. You got x on both terms. We take the smaller x. That's GCF. You can't take the larger x. And then if you punch in 16 and 45 into the GCF calculator, it's going to say it's 1, but you need to include the 1 because you already have a negative and an x. Okay. Okay, so I factor out negative 1x, and then I divide by negative 1x. Okay. And that's going to be positive 16 with x. 45 divided by negative 1 is negative 45. Don't write plus negative. Just put minus 45 if it's negative. Okay, and I have my 2 factors. I have factor 1 and factor 2. Okay, so either negative 1x could equal 0, or 16x minus 45 could equal 0. Okay, so here we just need to divide by negative 1. And x equals 0, so that's our first answer. And then here we add 45 to both sides. And 16x times x equals 45, so we need to divide 45 by 16. And it's a decimal, but it's a story problem, so we're going to write the decimal. So we're going to write 2.8. Okay, now the 2.8 is the answer I want to put down. Now the reason we have two answers is because the ball's also on the ground at the beginning, and at that's where the 0 is at, okay? At the beginning we have 0 seconds, and then when it lands back, that's when we get to the 2.8 seconds if we're keeping track of the time, okay? But you don't need to put those. I just need the 2.8. Okay, my next problem. Okay, missiles launched upward into the air and travels in a parabolic path with an initial upward velocity of 1,880 feet per second. How many seconds will it reach its ground target? And the ground always means it's at 0 feet. Okay, so we got seconds. And we're not finding the max height, and we have 2 units again. Again, drawing that giant parabola in the middle and marking the top, that would be how to find a maximum height. But if we're finding something else, then we're going to have to go with our boxes because there's 2 units. Okay, so my units are feet and seconds. X is seconds, Y is feet, so per feet per second, and I know that feet per second is 1,880 because a missile travels really fast. Okay, so missile's eventually going to come back down, and we want to find where it hits the ground. So I need to know how to write the gravity equation, so negative 16x to the power of 2. And then we take our feet per second, 1880, and that has x connected. And it starts from the ground, okay? So equals y. If they don't give us a starting height, then we assume that there is no starting height, and then we don't put anything in for that. Okay, the input value is 0 feet. And 0 is feet, so it is going to go in for y once again. Okay, so again, the equation's going to have 2 answers because of the x to the second, and along with x to the second, we also have an x to the first, meaning those are not like terms, so we need to factor the expression, and the 0's there. So space parentheses equals 0, just like that. And then the GCF, we have a negative in front again, and we have x on some type of x connected to all the terms here, all 2 of them. So that's x. And I punch in 16 and 1880 into that GCF calculator. You would need the GCF calculator for that probably, and you're actually going to get 8. Okay. So we factor out negative 8x, okay, and then we go divide by negative 8x. So that's going to give us 2x. Remember, those don't cancel. And then 1880 divided by negative 8 is negative 235. So I put minus, because it's negative, the quotient's negative, 235. And we know that those x's right there cancel. So I have my 2 linear factors. That's f1 and that's f2. So negative 8x equals 0. 2x minus 235 equals 0. Okay. Alright, so I divide by negative 8. 0 divided by negative 8, 0. So plus 235, plus 235. So 2 times x equals 235. And then I divide by 2. And 235 divided by 2 is 117.5. Okay, so again, that's the answer. And that's a little under 2 minutes. Okay, So again, the reason why we got two answers is because it's on the ground to begin with, and that's 0 seconds, and 117.5 would be the other. All right, that's what I have to say on that. You have one problem to do on your own. I hope it's been informative, and next video.